Welcome back to my channel. The Burj Khalifa in Dubai has been in the news lately. It's the world's tallest building and a wonder of modern engineering, yet its name is all but modern. The second part of the name, Khalifa, honors the Khalifa, a spiritual guide or divinely inspired leader in the religion of Islam. More specifically, the former ruler of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan. The first word, Burj, means tower and must be very old indeed. This word will immediately be familiar to anyone who speaks a Germanic language. Burg in German, Burg in French, Borough in English. And in fact, the very same word also appears in a broad array of other languages, ranging from Azerbaijani, Burj, Bengali, Burj, to Maltese, Burj, or Turkish, Burj, or Persian, Burj, and many others stretching from Gibraltar to Punjab. Even in Malay, Burj, and Chinese, Bao, or Bu, as in place names like Bao, Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, in the U.S., Hambau, Hamburg, Germany, and Edinburgh, Edinburgh, Scotland. Readers of the Oera Linda Book will of course know that the Burj is the tower that forms the central pillar of all Freya settlements, indeed of the entire way of life of the Freya people. Who's to say how this word spread to such disparate linguistic families across such a wide swath of the world? It's the kind of thing scientists should relish to investigate. In practice, however, there are very few willing to pursue topics that have been written off as bunk, even on the flimsiest of evidence. I have found one informal discussion on a language blog of precisely the Chinese word bao or bo, depending on what dialect it's pronounced in, and its relationship to the word Burj. It's definitely worth a visit, and I will include a link in the description below. On this one topic alone, taking the Oera Linda manuscript as a basis for investigation, there is certainly potential for a linguist to cause a revolution in the thinking among academics. Okay, that's crazy talk, I admit, but if, as an exercise, one takes the Oera Linda Book at face value, the explanation for the spread of the word Burj becomes rather straightforward. The seafaring Freyas explored and settled lands beginning far back in prehistory, and everywhere they went, they constructed a Burj as a lighthouse, defense, and cultural bastion for the diaspora of navigators and traders. Their moral obligation to remain a free people, passed on to them as an eternal law in Freya's Tes, was often disruptive to the native rulership, as described in multiple places throughout the manuscript. When the local peoples held in vassalage and slavery understood that these strangers had no masters other than those they elected as the most capable and trusted leaders, they naturally began to yearn for freedom, freedom of their own. In this way, the political systems in these far-flung lands began to shift and emulate, at least outwardly, the culture of the Freyas, who, for their part, sought to evangelize and pass on their understanding of the singular creator god Vralda, in which context each central Burj played a leading role as the home of the eternal flame, tended by the Vestal maidens and the Burg maid. That the centuries-long spread of this cultural model manifested in goddess figures like Vesta and Minerva, as well as a ubiquitously shared word for the Burj Tower, should, based on this reading of history, come as no surprise. Investigations into topics like this are ongoing all the time on the Oera Linda forum, which you can visit by clicking on the link in the description. The first half of the manuscript is said to be copied directly from the walls of the Burj throughout Freya's land, on the advice of Adela, before the assembly beginning on manuscript page 1. To preserve the histories recorded in the Burj before their wholesale destruction by invading tribes and armies, Adela proposed collecting as many of the inscriptions as possible in a book, a compendium later called the Book of the Adela Followers.
Were I permitted to give my advice, I should say that, before anything else, you must elect a new folksmother. I would also counsel you go to the burgs and copy all the laws, Friar's Tesh, all of the histories and everything else you can find on the walls, so that nothing will be lost if the burgs are destroyed.
Her foresight is thus responsible for the existence of the manuscript we now call the Oera Linda Book, though the actual wiping out of the burgs was ultimately the result of mostly natural disasters. Some Burj records are also contained in the earlier parts of the second half, composed before the inundations and eruptions that eventually helped seal the fate of the Burj-centered Freya culture. Beginning on manuscript page 106, Adela's daughter Apollonia describes her home Burg Liudgarda in this way.
The tower has 6 sides and is 3 times 30 feet high, flat on top. A small observatory sits thereon, from which one watches the stars. On each side of the tower there is a hall, 300 feet long, 3 times 7 feet wide, and equally high, except for the roof, which is vaulted. Surrounding the burg is a dike, and around it a moat 3 times 7 feet deep, 3 times 12 feet wide. Looking down from the tower, one sees the shape of the Yule wheel. The 3 northerly buildings are filled with grain and other stocks. 2 on the south are for the teaching and housing of the young maidens. The southernmost is the burgmaid's home. In the tower hangs the lamp, and the walls are bejeweled with precious stones.
She goes on to explain that all burgs are set up in the same way. This is a clue that should be explored through comparative archaeological studies to prove or disprove the broad dispersal of this cultural form. I read, "The ordering of our burg is the same as all others, though ours is the largest, except for the one at Tesland, which is the greatest of them all. The tower of Freya's burg at Tesland is so high that it rends the clouds, and the rest of the burg is in proportion to it." Though the burgs described here have long since disappeared, perhaps evidence can be found in the places where the word burg remains as a residuum in the collective memory. Discovering deep lexicological links like the Burg connection is one of the most exciting aspects of my engagement with the Oera Linda Book. And while inquiring into the accepted etymology of the Arab word burg, I came across just such another direct association with the Freya's language. According to Wikipedia, the root of the word burg is a now apparently obsolete verb, baria, meaning, among other things, to be or become apparent, manifest, or conspicuous, as well as high or elevated. As it's a verb, it must therefore also mean to lift up or elevate. Coincidentally, or not, Freya's also has the verb bara or baria, meaning, among other things, to be or become apparent, manifest, or conspicuous, as well as to lift up or elevate. English speakers will recognize the verb to bear, meaning both to bring into the world and to lift up or carry. Other words include barrow, or to bear, B-A-R-E, meaning to make apparent or conspicuous. German and Dutch words like openbaren or offenbaren share the same meaning, or the word bare, in English bier, which is a platform on which to bear the dead. There are similar examples in the Danish and Scandinavian languages, and even in Sanskrit and ancient Persian. We can't do a deep dive here. These facts should be made to bear scrutiny elsewhere, and I invite cunning linguists to take up the gauntlet. These types of cultural overlaps are explored on the Oera Linda forum and the Oera Linda Studies blog, the links to which are in the description. I may also do a live presentation about some of these topics to get your direct input. Please let me know in the comments whether you would be interested in participating in live talks on this channel. To finish up today's video, I'll read one of many excerpts where this verb bara is used, here in the meaning of to make to appear as if. Starting on manuscript page 138. I'll read it in English and point out the sentence containing the cross-cultural verbiage. While Jesus' teachings fared over the earth, the false priests went to the land of his birth to announce his death. They claimed to be of his friends and pretended great mourning, rending their clothes to rags and shaving their heads bare. They went to live in mountain caves, but in these they had stored their treasures, and made images in the likeness of Jesus. These images they gave to the unsuspecting people, and at long last they said that Jesus was a god, that he himself had revealed this to them, and that all who would believe in him and his teachings would enter his kingdom hereafter, where joy and pleasures reside. Because they knew that Jesus had campaigned against the rich, they preached everywhere that poverty and simplicity were the gateway to his kingdom, that those who have suffered the most here on earth would hereafter enjoy the greatest pleasures. While they knew that Jesus had taught that one should control and direct one's passions, they preached that one must stamp out all one's passions, and that the perfection of mankind consisted in becoming as immovable as cold stone. In order to convince the folk that they did so themselves, the priests feigned poverty in the streets. This is the sentence with the verb bara, and I'll read it in Freias for good measure. Omdat het volk nu wist mokkende dat je also deden, also bara dan je armoede overstreden. So the word is feigned, is our translation of bara in this case, to hold up something as something that it's not. So this references the hypocrisy and corruption of the priests. I'll finish off this snippet with a final paragraph that goes further into this, implying sexual misconduct atop cupidity. Apparently, some things never change. And to prove furthermore that they had eradicated all their passions, they took no wives, but when a daughter transgressed, it was quickly forgiven, ... The weak, they said, must be helped, and in order to save his own soul, one must offer generously to the temple. In this way, they had wife and children without household, and they grew rich without working. But the folk grew much poorer and more miserable than ever before. That's all for today. Please have a look at my video on the Burg laws to learn more about the central role of the tower in the life of the Freias, and join me soon to explore the enigmatic correspondences between the Freias languages and the lexicon of the modern world.